So, Kristi, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm loving the weather. I'm loving the weekend. I'm just really, really, really stoked. I'm going to take some time off this weekend, so I'm really excited.
Oh, you going anywhere fun?
I think I'm going to go to Tahoe with everyone else in San Francisco.
I mean, that makes sense. You might as well. It's close enough and it's beautiful right now.
Yeah, I just bought my new motorcycle, and so I've been trying to get it to go somewhere, and so I think Tahoe is going to be its break-in period. I'm going to Tahoe.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you. I haven't seen you in I think I haven't seen you since we did training last.
I'm pretty sure so it's probably been almost 2 years now.
Something like that. Yeah, but yeah, around 2 years. I mean, I've kept in touch with you via social media and whatnot, but it's good to actually like get to talk to you and connect.
It's good to hear your voice. Yes.
So, Kristi, we start the show the same way every single time, and so today I'm going to ask you why yoga for you.
I started with it and it was a complete freak accident, and I just haven't turned back ever since. It just seems to be the perfect balance of everything that's missing, whether it be for the fitness aspect, the connectivity, the community. It's so much more than just the movement, and it becomes a lifestyle. It kind of gets in your bones, and then before you know it, things change in your personal life, in your physical life. It changes your world.
Did you know that it was going to change everything else, or did you just go into it for physical stuff?
I went into it for physical stuff. Ironically, I was doing the P90X workout, and
No
I was on
way.
my. I really was, and it was the first week. They have different like videos for every day, and it was give this a try. And I got to the seventh day, which was the yoga day, and then on the eighth day, I'm like, well, I'll just do the yoga one again, and I'll just keep doing the yoga one. And then it must have been like 2 weeks of that before I finally got sick of the same jokes and the same sequence. And I went and took my first class and never went back.
Wow, who knew P90X would get people into yoga?
Who knew that Tony Horton had that ability?
You know what?
It's not the.
Actually, I feel
It's
like
not
someone
bad.
else told me recently that P90X is what got them into yoga, or they had done yoga via
It's
P90X or something like that.
his yoga sequence on there is actually like pretty decent. He's not the best yoga instructor because, when you're in the middle of Warrior Two, you probably shouldn't say get him up, but like he's a good motivational fitness instructor. But for yoga, I'm glad I branched out
So you're teaching now, right?
full time.
And you're loving it.
I love it. I really do.
And
Teach 22 classes a week, and
22?
22.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
And I'm putting together my first official teacher training.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, right. I'm like, this is if I have a day off, I end up taking more yoga, so I might as well just keep teaching it.
And you had a fitness background before that, right?
I did, yes. I've been actually teaching fitness for over a decade.
Okay, so what was your background in fit? Because we're about to dig into all this stuff together. But what was your fitness background before yoga?
I actually started when I was in high school and early college. I did a lot of dance
Hmm.
and taught a lot of dance, did a lot of dance, which when you're in dance, it usually leads to Pilates. And then I got into Pilates. I studied a bit of physical therapy background and did stop Pilates, which again is like a physical therapy Pilates.
Right.
And from there, I actually also did some circus work. I taught some acrobatics, some acro yoga, and then eventually worked my way to yoga when I was in my mid 20s. And I've been teaching yoga for 8 years.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about here's what we're gonna chat about how yoga has changed, how yoga and fitness in general has changed, specifically
Yes.
here in the States, and how it's grown in so many different directions. But how have you? I mean, since you've been doing it for a while now, you've been teaching for 8 years, and then you were doing fitness stuff beforehand. What do you see the beast changing into?
Especially recently, actually, the big thing I notice is the classes are getting shorter. And I feel like recently, in the past couple years, in some places, yoga is evolving into something beautiful. But then as more corporations are starting to get into yoga, we're starting to see it change into a fitness routine that's getting away from some of the roots of yoga. Um, you're seeing a lot more 60-minute classes where they discourage you from different things like chanting or oming or talking about principles. You're starting to see more, you're seeing yoga Sculpt programs, and they're wonderful for fitness routines. It's just, I think they're getting a little less yogic. You want yoga to encourage all the other principles.
So what do you think the remedy is then?
I think the remedy is balance more than anything. I love having the 60-minute options. It's great for people, especially here in America. People want that quick fix here. People want a pill they can swallow. They want to get all their yoga. They want to get all their fitness into that 1 hour of the day. And I think we need to become better as teachers in incorporating it into our flows, into our sequencing, to make sure that we're getting those foundational principles that started yoga, that we created.
Do you think that those, because I would argue sometimes, like, and I've taught for a few places that are like that, but like, I think for some people that's like the gateway into yoga. And then after they do that stuff for a little bit, then they're like, okay, wait, I want more of this, but I want a different taste of it.
Yes, I agree with that, actually. I think it's great as a gateway. It's important that studio owners and teachers make sure that that's not the only way they go, because you're starting to see studios now like I don't know, can I say brand names on this station?
Sure, why not?
You're seeing a lot of corporate yoga, like places like Core Power, where all their classes are strictly 1 hour, and
Right.
you have the Sculpts, you have all these different ones, but they're only an hour. They discourage yoga. I mean, they talk about their yogic principles in their teacher trainings, but they don't encourage them as well as they should. And these places are popping up all over the place, and that's where people are going. And it's good that if they would make sure that they added other components.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, every model has its own recipe, and I think it works for them the way it works. I think, as teachers, we get to decide in our classes where we're allowed to what we want to share and what we get to offer. Some teachers teach for a fitness background or for fitness only, and others teach to get people to be more in their bodies, in a more mindful practice, and others teach because they really want to get deep diving into the to the spiritual aspect of it. And I think that there's nice to have a lot of options. What I do find is it's hard to police, like, okay, well, what should be taught and what shouldn't be taught, and what is okay and what's not okay, and what is a practice and what's not a practice.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on like Yoga Alliance then?
Well, Yoga Alliance is really interesting to me. I don't really, although I don't know them really well outside of like the business that I do with them. I think it's cool to have, I think that it's smart to have some type of governing board, but I don't really see a lot happening, with it, although I know they've gone through a lot of changes recently. So, over the last couple of years, it's really changed a lot over there. But I don't know. I guess my head's so far removed from that I don't really stress about it too much.
Well, it's good not to stress.
Yeah.
It's good to have a governing body. I agree with you. And I think it's good to have kind of like what we're talking about. It's good to have a standard. I think that standards need to change a bit to be a little bit more. It's funny to say that we need standards to have more open-mindedness, more different thought patterns. Like, it'd be nice to see more studios that had multiple types of yoga, not just a vinyasa studio, but maybe also having like Iyengar, or not just a like a Bikram studio having Ashtanga. Mix it up a little bit, different styles, different flavors, different amounts of time. Because I know, where you guys are in San Francisco, that's the hub. It's beautiful up there. You have that up there, which is wonderful. But if you move outward a bit, you get into the suburbs, you get out a ways. Sometimes the only options they have are places that are a strictly one thing.
Right. Yeah, I think having the variety is really important, and I think like here's my I get it, and I get where you're coming from. Like the purist of it, I think is great. I think calling certain things yoga is not yoga.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. If we're taking pictures of acrobatics on Instagram, call it acrobatics, because it's not yoga, and it's so ridiculous. It's like, it's almost like we're pushing ourselves to, go into these big, beautiful postures that, that's what it's supposed to look like. And we forget that it's not a look like, it's a feel.
Exactly. Just going on a tangent on that, there's a big debate I have with, there's a particular studio I work at, and I talked to the studio owner. They want mirrors on every single wall. And I was always from a lineage where we did no mirrors. So that we encouraged how the posture felt and
Right.
how the instructor corrected it to make it feel different, as opposed to, how good your yoga pants look in the mirror.
Right. Yeah, I think I don't ever get caught up on the mirror controversy thing. I could care less about mirror. I've never used a mirror before.
Me
In
neither.
Ashtanga, you don't have mirrors.
In Ashtanga, you don't have mirrors.
Yeah.
And that was always how it felt.
You can tell the Ashtangis because we're the curmudgeons of the group.
We're just like, no, this is how we do it. And yes, we are the Ashtangis of the group.
Oh my God, I remember in that training that we did, I was just like, well, every answer I had was from the Ashtanga lineage, and everyone was so annoyed.
Well, in Ashtanga, and then sitting next to each other, I'm just sitting there like, yeah, it's true. I was there.
He's right. The man's got a point.
He's right. Is everyone listening? Everyone should be listening.
No, I think that, like as this practice does grow and evolve, and it does like anything else, you can't get caught up on like the past. I think that you need to keep it real. You also need to keep it fresh. But I think that you need to not forget your background, and you need to, like your roots need to be there. If not,
yes.
If not, call it something different, because that's what you're doing is something different. If it's rooted in yoga, then let it be rooted in yoga and stay committed to that root in yoga. But if you're going somewhere else with it, make it something else.
Yeah, like call it something else. If you're basically doing like a fitness routine where you're using weights and you happen to do one down dog, I don't know if we should call that yoga sculpt. I think we should probably call that a fitness routine of some sort. It's one of those where you gotta be aware of the roots. There should be guidelines, or at least be very clear in your naming process.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It makes sense. Listen, I taught Sculpt for a really long time. I taught at Core Power for many, many years, and I love them. I really do. When the company was ran by Trevor, and still some of the key players that have really kept that energy alive. They've done so many good things. The way that they've brought yoga to so many people is so magical to me. Like, I think that's so important, and I love that they got big enough where they could be pioneers of that, but I think that's one flavor of yoga. And I think that if it's the gateway drug, then great. And if people start doing multiple things after that, awesome. I'm into it.
It is a good gateway yoga. What worries me about them is they are getting big, and they're expanding quick. Like, they're trying to open, I think, 4 or 5 new locations in the Bay Area. They just opened a San Mateo branch that I've been working with, and it's a great studio. It's got great potential. I get a little worried, though, that if they're growing a little too much too fast, they're going to start sacrificing a little bit of quality. And I see it a lot, especially at the studio that I'm familiar with, where they're hosting teacher trainings now, but the teachers that are leading the teacher trainings have been teaching for less than a year.
Yeah.
Or are only 200 hour. They don't have the experience level yet. There was one night where I was going in to just teach a class, but they were going in to teach teacher training, and the leader came up to me just completely off her rocker nuts because she was supposed to teach a whole lecture on the chakras and she didn't know what they were.
Whoa, that's not cool.
I know. And so this is like one of those where you're like, I think you should teach my class. Maybe I'll go in there for you. Maybe we should switch roles.
Right.
And but that's kind of what got me thinking is I love that you have these places like Core Power bringing so much yoga to so many people. But like we're saying, you need to make sure you have those roots, you have that quality before you try to branch too quickly. You don't want to open 12 locations when you only have enough qualified teachers for 2, and then have people taking yoga that will either push them down a different route. Maybe they don't like yoga, but maybe because the teacher wasn't ready.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's just really investing in your people. I mean, you get what you put into it. So.
Yes, exactly.
So, Kristi,
I didn't know you taught.
Go ahead, say.
I said I didn't know you taught for Core Power. That's awesome.
Yeah, I taught for. I actually managed for them, and I had a really great time, man. I love them, and they have a special place in my heart, and I really do believe in what they do. I think that, as obviously as I grew as a teacher, I grew out of that and went somewhere else and started doing my own thing. But I think that the more people that we can get to do yoga, the better.
Yeah, exactly. They're the best gateway yoga that I've found.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that, like I said, what they offer is really awesome, and just people change, and that's natural. And I think people should change. If you're practicing yoga the same way your entire life, you got a problem.
You've got issues.
You've got it.
You got to get out of that box.
Something's got to change. Something's got to give. It's just the way it works, That's just the same thing as like if I was teaching the same yoga, from now 5 years from now, like something's wrong. If I'm not consistently putting in some work to grow and learn, then I'm not doing the work.
See, I wouldn't even like having to teach it. I teach a Bikram lineage, and it kind of drives me crazy because every time I go in there, I'm like, guess what we're going to do next? You'll never guess. Just guess.
Right. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
And guess what? It's hot. Yes.
Yeah. Surprise.
Surprise. Just trying to keep the mystery alive.
Yeah, right? No kidding. That's awesome. So you teach 22 classes a week. What else do you have going on?
For the most part, I got the 22 classes. I got a few privates. I am getting a teacher training. I'm trying to get that off the ground. I'm also helping one of the studios I teach at. They're getting ready to expand, so I'm trying to help them put together a cohesive program where they started, ironically, as a Bikram studio, and now they have Iyengar, they have Vinyasa, and we're trying to expand their Vinyasa a little bit to get some more different flavors of Vinyasa in there for them. So
Nice.
I'm trying to help them find teachers. I'm trying to help them find programs, subs, everything that goes into basically opening a new studio because
Right.
they're adding another space.
Right. Cool. Awesome. Well, do you have a website where we could find you?
Yes, my website is happydanceyoga.com.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure to post that in the notes. That way, if people want to come catch one of your classes, they can come scope you out.
That'd be great.
Nice. Well, do you have anything else to say, Kristi, for the listeners before we end the show?
Be well, be happy, and if it's not right, don't do it.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Until the next Yogi Misfit session, this is Danny and Kristi saying peace out.
Peace.